Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravana Chari Yamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravana Chari Yamuna Tiravana Chari Yamuna Tiravana Chari Yamuna Tiravana Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Shri Radha Madhav ki Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam class. I'll share the verse today. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 32, Text 5. Ye swadharmana duhyanti dhira kamartha hetave nisanga nyasta karmana prashanta shuddha chetasa. Yaha, those who swadharman, their occupational duties, na, do not, duhyanti, take advantage of, dhira, intelligent, kama, sense gratification, artha, economic development, hetave, for the sake of, nisanga, free from material attachment, nyasta, give up, karmana, fruit of activities, prashanta, satisfied, shuddha chetasa, of purified consciousness. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Those who are intelligent and are of purified consciousness are completely satisfied in Krishna consciousness. Freed from the modes of material nature, they do not act for sense gratification. Rather, since they are situated in their own occupational duties, they act as one is expected to act. Once again, those who are intelligent and are of purified consciousness are completely satisfied in Krishna consciousness. Freed from the modes of material nature, they do not act for sense gratification. Rather, since they are situated in their own occupational duties, they act as one is expected to act. Purport. The first-class example of this type of man is Arjuna. Arjuna was a Kshatriya, and his occupational duty was to fight. Generally, kings fight to extend their kingdoms, which they rule for sense gratification. But as far as Arjuna is concerned, he declined to fight for his own sense gratification. He said that although he could get a kingdom by fighting with his relatives, he did not want to fight with them. But when he was ordered by Krishna and convinced by the teachings of Bhagavad Gita that his duty was to satisfy Krishna, Then he fought. Thus he fought not for his sense gratification, but for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Persons who work at their prescribed duties not for sense gratification, but for the gratification of the Supreme Lord, are called Nisanga, freed from the influence of the modes of material nature. Nyasta karmana indicates that the results of their activities are given to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such persons appear to be acting on the platform of their respective duties, but such activities are not performed for personal sense gratification. Rather, they are performed for the Supreme Person. Such devotees are called prashanta, which means completely satisfied. Shuddha cetasa means Krishna conscious. Their consciousness has become purified. In unpurified consciousness, one thinks of himself as the Lord of the universe. But in purified consciousness, one thinks himself the eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Putting oneself in that position of eternal servitorship to the Supreme Lord and working for Him perpetually, one actually becomes completely satisfied. As long as one works for his personal sense gratification, he will always be full of anxiety. That is the difference between ordinary consciousness and Krishna consciousness. Om Jnanam Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadahmayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitangsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Stute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Translation: those who are intelligent and are of purified consciousness are completely satisfied in Krishna consciousness. Freed from the modes of material nature, they do not act for sense gratification. Rather, since they are situated in their own occupational duties, they act as one is expected to act. This is a very wonderful verse, as are the verses of the Bhagavatam. And the nature of the Bhagavatam is that whatever we need to hear, we hear on that day. It's so amazing. And for myself, very much this verse is like that. In this verse, the purport, the first paragraph, Srila Prabhupada is starting with the example of Arjuna and is showing how Arjuna is actually the example, the perfect example of this verse. His life is perfectly illustrating how one acts in purified consciousness or Krishna consciousness. Because we generally have the conception that Arjun was first in ignorance, he was bewildered, and then Krishna brought him to knowledge. And that is true, right? That's true that Arjun by Krishna's arrangement, becomes bewildered, and then Krishna sort of brings him to his, factual Krishna conscious, state. Of course, again, that's Krishna's desire. He's a pure devotee. He doesn't become bewildered. But at the same time, Arjuna's example is not just of bewilderment. His example is there because it's showing the mindset of a great devotee of the Lord. And this Srila Prabhupada specifically mentions in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And we can read that verse, the purport of that verse, if we have the time. But he writes how uh, Arjuna's desire, his disinclination to fight, is the quality of a great devotee of the Lord. He says this is the difference of the mindset between Arjuna and Duryodhana, both of who you find in the first chapter. Duryodhana is shown on the battlefield. The setting of the scene is so important. We think, okay, this is just setting the scene, but it's giving a great, it's actually giving the setting of the knowledge of the Gita, where Duryodhana is looking over the armies and he's just feeling so excited. And he's going to his grandfather and to Dronacharya and he's saying, see, all these people are willing to die for me. And in his heart, Duryodhana is feeling this is the hallmark of my success. That all these people here on both sides, but on my side, all of you, great personalities. He's almost chiding them. Ganga Putra Bhishma, my teachers, my friends, my relatives, every single one. Why are they here? They weren't there to put themselves as king. They're here to put me as king. And they're willing to die, to fight for me. And Arjun, on the other hand, on the other side, who has been wronged in every way possible, right? Duryodhana is the perpetrator and Arjuna is the victim. He has been wronged in every way possible. Their kingdom has been stolen away. Their wife was insulted in the worst way possible, worse than death. This was the ultimate offense that they made when they tried to offend Draupadi in that way, a great devotee also of the Lord. And they tried to feed his brothers poison. They tried to burn them in fire. They banished them in the forest for 13 years. They did everything in the world to try to kill them. They tried to get sages to curse them. And furthermore, Arjuna is the most powerful warrior in the world at that time. Just a year ago, he had defeated single-handedly all of the great Kuru heads. Bhishma, Drona, they had come, in the Agyatvas. They had come for the Ranga Kshetra. And there alone, he had fought all of them off, every single one. So he had also demonstrated his strength. And during the exile, he had also performed intense austerities to gain weapons that no one in this world had by pleasing Lord Shiva himself. So though he is also not just that, okay, well, I don't have a choice, I better run, with the tail between my legs, but he is the greatest warrior at that time. Yet he feels compassion for the other side and his own side, for the soldiers of his own side. And he thinks, what is the use to fight this battle for my sake? If there's a reason to fight it, great. But why should all these people die? Why should we engage in this battle just to put myself or my brothers as king of this world? Notice Duryodhana is thinking so nice, my I'm being exalted as king and so many people are going to die for me. And Arjuna, who has every right to fight, Duryodhana has no reason, nothing has been wrong to him. But Arjuna, not just for the kingdom, but just for justice, he has every reason to fight. He's thinking, what is the use? Because why should I fight for my sense gratification, for my desire to become the king? And why should anyone die, even one person die, for my benefit? And Prabhupada writes that this is the correct consciousness of a devotee. And he says that it is precisely because Arjuna has this mindset that he is qualified to be Krishna's disciple. This he says in that purport so nicely. He says, therefore, he is qualified to be Krishna's disciple. This is why Krishna chose him to be his disciple, and he didn't choose me or someone else. Because Arjuna has this mood in his heart. He's a soft-hearted, compassionate devotee, and this, Prabhupada says, this is the life of a devotee. Um, um, and then tells Krishna, I will not fight. Let them come with arms upraised. They are my teachers. They are my uncles. They are my superiors. And let them come and kill me. Why should I fight with them? Right? But then when Krishna tells him, no, you must fight, because I have ordered you to fight, then Arjuna is ready. He picks up his bow Gandiva and he's ready to fight. At the end, he says, oh, Krishna, you have dispelled all my doubts. And now I'm ready to do whatever you ask me to do. Then he finds a reason to fight because he's clearly understanding that Krishna, he's spoken 700 verses. He's spoken this again and again. He wants me to fight. So it is now my service to fight. And Srila Prabhupada is writing in this purport that when we fight like this, when we fight not for ourselves, not for our own, fulfillment, but we fight for Krishna, we fight for Krishna's purpose, then there's no anxiety. Then that devotee has no anxiety because they're not fighting for themselves. They have some anxiety for Krishna. They want to see Krishna's will to prevail. But ultimately, if Krishna really wants his will to prevail, Krishna will make the arrangement. But Krishna doesn't seem to be acting, or Krishna wants me to fight and he will do things in his own time, then that is his prerogative. And that's why it's so relevant, this verse, to us, because as devotees, we're obviously told to be, humble and tolerant and kind and compassionate. And sometimes we then wonder, when should I speak up and when should I not? We're also, as a devotee, we're told to stand for the right thing. And we're told, also to be humble. And this is a big thing that, pulls us in both directions. Should I speak or not speak? What is Krishna consciousness? Standing up or not standing up, saying something or not saying something. And here this verse, Prabhupada is clarifying it so nicely. He's saying, if our mindset is 100% that we are speaking up, we are fighting for Krishna, then that is Krishna consciousness. And if we don't, then that is actually Arjuna's bewilderment. Then we are in the bewildered state. On the other hand, if we fight for even 1% for our own sense gratification, then that is bewilderment. That is not the Arjuna consciousness. That is the Duryodhana consciousness. Because he's fighting for himself. Arjuna doesn't want to fight for himself. Arjuna wants to fight only for Krishna. So therefore, Prabhupada says, beautiful purports. He says how, and I'm not reading them because we always, we have a short period of time here and then go over. But he says that in our tradition, we have seen great devotees who have renounced the world for everything. They're the most peaceful, compassionate, kind, tolerant, and humble personalities. Yet, he says, we have also seen the greatest warriors among devotees. And he says, for the purpose of Krishna, a devotee can fight a battle. And the example of this is that the greatest warriors of history were Lord Hanuman, who picked up a mountain for Lord Ramachandra, who fought so many demons and so many people for Lord Ramachandra's pleasure, to bring Sita back to Lord Ram. We find Arjuna, we find Maharaj Yudhishthira. He names all these great warriors who are perfect devotees of the Lord. And like he's mentioning in this purport, they are also fighting. Others are also fighting. But what is the difference? The difference is that they have put Krishna in the center. It's not their own minds or their own mentalities or their own desires that are in the center, but Krishna is in the center. Krishna is brought to the center. Let me fight for him. Otherwise, they have no desire to put themselves forward, right? Not just in terms of fighting, but also in terms of putting ourselves forward, right? A devotee doesn't advertise himself. A devotee does not put himself or herself in the center. And this was the beautiful quality of Srila Prabhupada, that he led an entire movement, but he always kept himself in the background. He never made himself God. Some disciples tried to make him God, but he actually removed them from the movement temporarily. He was so angry with them. It's the only time in the history of the Lilamrit that you find where Prabhupada actually kicks devotees out of the movement. Like he says, I'm kicking you out. And because he never did, he let Krishna arrange it. He never kind of um, excommunicated someone like other churches sometimes do. But this point he did, because this group of devotees was saying that Prabhupada is actually God. And because that was such a transgression, he said, no, you cannot do this. And they came back. And even those devotees, he brought them back. But the point is that he always kept himself in the background. On the other hand, Srila Prabhupada emphasized, he insisted that on every one of his books and in the society's bylaws, it be written Founder Acharya A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. He insisted. And why? Because that was for service. He knew that if he didn't write that, then every type of hodgepodge would enter into the movement. And even during his time, uh, his disciples were going to his god brothers, and his god brothers, seeing the success, were trying to, without approaching Prabhupada, but from the side, trying to pull his disciples into their mutts, or trying to, enter into different temples and preach their own philosophies. And Prabhupada at that time said that if they say even one word that is different, you'll become confused. The society will become unpurified, like is mentioned in this verse. So he was very careful that the Lord Chaitanya's pure message should be kept front and center. And therefore he had to take that service of being founder acharya, so that other acharyas, other philosophies, other movements don't compromise the movement, which he personally saw happen in his own spiritual master's movement, that it became so, so either the unity left and it became, convoluted, and to Lord Chaitanya's movement. After that, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he removed, his main service was removing the apasampradayas, the 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 mixed philosophies that were not representative or reflective of Lord Chaitanya's teachings. So devotees willing to put themselves forward 1,000 times if it's for the service of Krishna. But otherwise, they never put themselves in the center. They always prefer being the servant. Prabhupada here writes, so amazing. He says, such devotees are called prashanta, which means completely satisfied. Such consciousness leads to complete satisfaction. Shuddha cetasa means Krishna conscious. Their consciousness has become purified. In unpurified consciousness, one thinks of himself as the Lord of the universe. But in purified consciousness, one thinks himself the eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Putting oneself in the position of eternal servitorship to the Supreme Lord and working for him perpetually, one actually becomes completely satisfied. So in this world, no one wants to be the servant, right? If there's a position that becomes available for the leader, or for the head of an institution, then there'll be one position and there'll be 1,000 applications. This is actually true. Like when a university is looking for a president, they often make an advertisement, and sometimes there will be more than 1,000. There'll be 1,000 different, 1 second. Okay, 1,000 different applications for one position. But no one applies to become the servant, right? If someone says, who would like to be the servant? No one applies for that because in this material world, we don't want to do that. We want to be master. And this is why when we come to the material world, the first position we get is as Lord Brahma, so that we can experience what it is like to be a master. Krishna, every time anyone who falls from the spiritual world, the first place that they get is as Lord Brahma. And we try being Lord Brahma, the controller of the entire universe. That doesn't satisfy us. And thus in the next life, we become someone else, then someone else. So each lifetime is an effort. It's a experiment in being master. And in every lifetime, we are frustrated being master. Even within this lifetime, we first try to be the master in our school. Then we try to be the master at work, in our career, something like that. That doesn't work. We miss that position. Someone else gets it that we were trying for. And I knew one person, he worked for a company for 12 years and he was trying for a specific position. He was like, that's the position I want to be. And at the end, the person who was working under him got that position. And he just flipped out. Like he lost it after that. He actually did. He left the company. He tried starting his own company. That failed. It was just like he could never recover from it. Then, of course, he did. He came to Krishna consciousness and became very happy. But he was so dissatisfied. And then we tried to become the controller of our families. That really doesn't work, right? And then we try to be the a master of our community, of our society, of our nation. And none of those masterships satisfy us. And then we come to the realization that I want to be the eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We also try being servant of other beings, and that also doesn't satisfy us. Like Prabhupada says, servant of our dog, servant of our families. But when we come to the realization that I am the eternal servitor of Krishna, then we become fully satisfied. And that becomes our perpetual satisfaction. And therefore, just ending here, Prabhupada says how our eternal position is to participate, is to serve in the eternal leelas of Krishna. And that is the main thing, that by serving Krishna's leela, we become satisfied. And by serving Krishna in this lifetime, we are also serving Krishna's pastimes. These are Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. By serving in his pastimes, in his movement, by serving in his movement, we are serving in his pastimes. And that is the perfection of one's life. One feels fully satisfied in that position. One feels completely satisfied. And then one doesn't need anything else. One realizes that actually there's nothing else to accomplish, because everything else is temporary, right? Everything finishes with time. Everything, even spiritual, everything, even our spiritual accomplishments, they vanish with time. And they're also not fully satisfying, any material accomplishment. And we work so hard, build a company, or we work so hard and build a reputation for ourselves. And in 10 years, when we get old, people are like, we want the younger generation, forget this, generation. Or someone else comes out with something better and they forget about what came out before. So you think, well, what is the purpose? Or we, try to set up a community or something in spiritual life. We try to, establish a project, and that may vanish also over time. Then you think, well, what is the purpose? The purpose, actually, of all of these things, of all of our services, is simply to satisfy the Lord. As Prabhupada said, here and now, right? Our service right now is for satisfying the Lord, for no other purpose than satisfying him here and now. because that is our eternal position. Our eternal nature is just to serve. We'll serve now, and after death, we will also serve. And that's why the devotee has no anxiety. We'll serve now. If Krishna is satisfied, then that's the perfection. And we'll keep doing it. So what is the change? The purpose itself is only the service. Just like we were mentioning that initially we are attached to our service, but as we advance in spiritual life, we are attached to being a servant. Right? The service is not the focus, but being a servant is the focus because Krishna is the focus. And whatever service he wants us to have, he wants us to be a pot washer, or if he wants us to be a GBC, it's the same for a devotee because they're interested in being a servant and doing what Krishna wants us to do, doing what pleases Krishna, and in that way realizing our eternal nature, which is our perfection, our happiness, which is to please Krishna. So in our day-to-day life, that manifests in terms of performing our prescribed duties. That's why this verse ends with that. Whatever is prescribed to us will come naturally. We will do that service, and not for our sense gratification, but for Krishna. And then in doing those prescribed duties for Krishna, Krishna will automatically uplift us. He will bring us close to him, very near him. Our spiritual process is the descending process. In the mature life, we have to use the ascending process. Well, if I want to climb up, I need to pull the person above me down and make them look bad and do something, then I can climb up. But in the spiritual process, it's so nice. We just serve, and then automatically Krishna brings us closer to him. So therefore, we are following the descending process. I'll stop here and see if there's any comments, realizations, corrections. Thank you. Please forgive me if I said something wrong. Any thoughts?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for a wonderful class. It's really again the example of Arjuna and the change in his heart. One is when we try to look at a particular activity in terms of right and wrong.
Mm,
Um, from our perspective, it's very challenging to determine what is right and wrong.
mm,
But when we look at it from the lens of serving Krishna,
mm,
that becomes a little bit more clear, irrespective of how that activity might appear to be, even if it is of killing someone.
mm,
Um, and I was reminded that even after the Kurukshetra war was done and the Pandavas followed the instructions of Krishna,
mm,
Yudhishthir still was lamenting,
mm,
and he goes to Bhishma,
mm, mm,
and so um, this
mm,
how do I know that I'm actually following the instructions of Krishna,
mm,
or am I following a figment of
mm,
what I think Krishna wants?
mm,
Uh, and of course, in the case of Bhishma Dev, in the case of Yudhishthir Maharaj, he goes to Bhishma Dev, his venerable grandfather,
mm,
and Bhishma Dev provides a 3-point check
mm,
for Yudhishthir Maharaj, which is, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra.
mm,
Is if you have taken the guidance of the Shastras,
mm,
if you have taken the guidance of the sadhus,
mm,
and if you follow the instruction of your spiritual master,
mm,
then there is no need to lament.
mm,
And if you have failed in any one of these,
mm,
then there is reason for you to doubt your actions.
mm,
And so, I mean, I was just reminded of this particular pastime as you were talking about. of course, what is the consciousness and with which we would act?
Mm,
The activity in itself,
mm,
if it is done and dovetailed, not really dovetailed, actually done on behalf of just as a service to Krishna,
mm,
then irrespective of how it appears, it's always glorious.
mm,
But on the flip side, we may have tendencies to justify our actions in Krishna consciousness,
mm,
and that could potentially be a slippery slope.
mm,
And taking appropriate guidance around people that we trust,
mm,
and in general, the community trust,
mm,
would be an appropriate way to do a reality check on, am I in the right direction or not. Anyway, as you were talking
mm.
about this thing occurred to me. I just wanted to comment on that. Thank you so much.
Yes, Prabhu. No, thank you. You actually kind of brought it together in a very nice way. And I really liked the point that you made. Um, uh, I really liked the point that you made of Maharaj Yudhishthir. That first, I mean, they're all connected, right? The brothers. So I'm sure Maharaj Yudhishthir had full knowledge of, because they would meet every evening, of Arjuna's conversation with Krishna and how he had expressed doubt and Krishna had encouraged him that you should fight in this battle and this is for my service. So Maharaj Yudhishthir, if we have heard of it, he had definitely heard by that time of Krishna's instructions to Arjuna and his encouragement for the battle. But even after that, he's still feeling um, so concerned that I should not have fought. And then nothing consoles him other than going to Bhishma Dev, and then, like you said, Bhishma Dev saying, "Well, you didn't do this." So it comes to show that how much we must be careful, or how much uh, it's important for us to consult Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra in our lives, so that later on there's no regret. So that later on we say, okay, this is what the Lord desired, or no regret or no reaction. This is what was, the desire of the Lord, and and this is I mean, such an amazing lesson that on one hand, they're the most valiant warriors. They're examples of devotees who fought for Krishna in a battle. On the other hand, there's so much care and compassion and kindness on their part. They're so gentle in their, so it's like they have both things together, and only a devotee can manifest both things. That they're fully assertive and they're fully humble. That quality, and actually, someplace Prabhupada says this, and then I think Hridayananda Maharaj repeats this, is that that's the amazing quality of a devotee, that people are surprised when they meet a devotee, how they can be um, so powerful in one way, like Srila Prabhupada, and simultaneously so humble. Because in the mature world, we find one or the other, but both things come in the life of a devotee, because they're serving Krishna and they're assertive for Krishna, yet so humble within. So, yeah, like you said, you've put it so well. Thank you. I was in the meantime, while uh, I found this passage from Prabhupada, uh, where Prabhupada in the lecture he writes, so Vaishnavas do not simply chant Hare Krishna. If there is a need, they can fight under the guidance of Vishnu and become victorious. Out of the 26 qualifications, one qualification is Daksha, expert. So the key point here is they can fight under the guidance of Vishnu. So they're not out of their own desire, but out of the guidance of Vishnu. If there's a need for fighting, they can fight very expertly. That is also needed. Krishna consciousness does not mean one-sided. Krishna is all-pervading. The Krishna consciousness movement also should be all-pervading. It should touch everything, even politics, sociology, everything if required. Mhm. So, all right. Anyone else? Any thoughts? Okay, thank you very much. We will stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.